You are now listening to a member of the Disney Podcast family. Head over to Disney Podcast Family on Instagram to see all the latest posts for this show and links to other great Disney podcasts.
Welcome, dreamers and believers. You're listening to Imagine That, a Light in the Window production.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next episode of Imagine That. We're down one host today. Lou is busy getting ready for things that he has to ship to Rogue Comic Con because I don't think he's going to be joining us. But we do have Kevin and Amanda here today, so welcome in, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Doing awesome. Ready to hold down the fort, and we miss Lou, but that's okay.
Yeah. We can't wait for Lou to be back. We love him. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing really well. We had fun at the DFC Expo last weekend, I guess. So
yesterday.
We're recording this on Monday, but I don't know when this is going to drop. So
that's true.
Last weekend.
Last Sunday.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm getting over some kind of sore throat today. I don't know if it was all the talking yesterday or whatever was in the air, but yeah, that's been great. A lot of fun over here.
You can have your sore throat, and I'll have my stuffy nose, and Amanda can stay healthy down there. All right. What was your favorite moments from the DFC Expo?
Mine was seeing everybody again who have been there before, but also seeing some people that we've seen in other spots, such as Joey and Courtney, our friends from the Walt Department podcast. And they stopped by and said hi. And then afterward, we went to Disneyland and we ran into Alex and Abby. So seeing all kinds of people from the Walt Department family.
We love that. I wish I was closer so I could run into everybody more often. I need to move.
I wish you were closer too. That would be amazing. We have great fishing spots here too.
True. David made a joke earlier about how, or it might have been Joey, I can't remember. One of them were like, she's going to see the fishing in Oregon and she's not going to want to leave. Because we had, because I am a last minute planner and I am absolute chaos. Not my best Imagineering quality over here. I did not book my return flight yet.
I'm not sure why you booked a one-way ticket to.
Because I was trying
where are you flying to? Oakland?
I'm flying into Sacramento. I'm flying out of San Francisco.
Oh dear.
Chaos.
If you fly out.
Well, I am flying out. I took the ticket is bought today.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
I had to solidify a bunch of plans, but the flights the way there were getting crazy expensive. So I just grabbed one, and then now that my plans are more solidified, I could grab one today. But I am chaos because that's what it is. So that's how I am. I am excited for Rogue Comic Con. If you're in the area, May 4th, Medford, Oregon, come join us. We are going to be the main stage hosts. There's going to be lots of fun going on. So there's the plug for that. But let's plug something else because we have been talking about the Imagineering Pyramid book by Lou Prosperi. And we are on tier 3 of the pyramid. We are steadfastly moving through this. So the first week that we talked about this book, we divided up the 5 categories that were, it all begins with the story, creative intent, attention to detail, theming, and long, medium, and close shots. So if you want to hear that episode, go on back and listen to that episode. Same thing with our episode on the second tier, which is weenies, transitions, storyboards, pre-shows, and post-shows. This week, we are going to be talking about the third tier. There's only 3 subtopics: forced perspective, readability, and kinetics. So all of these layers of the pyramid are kind of leading us to the next level of adding detail to story elements. We talked about how attention to detail is important, and we keep seeing that kind of sprinkled throughout every single theme that we're looking at. And I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to end up when we end up at the top of the pyramid with blessing. So anything you guys want to talk about the pyramid or this week's section before we jump into force perspective?
I just want to say that since going deeper into what is Imagineering and all of the elements of Imagineering, it has really, like, we go to theme parks all the time, but it's really given us a different way to experience the parks. And we're finding ourselves saying all the time, like, okay, let's critique this pre-show. Like, let's talk about this post-show. Like, what is this? And there's some kinetics, which we'll get into. There's area
Force
of opportunity
yeah.
for some different things, and so it's a different way to experience the parks, knowing these elements exist. So this has been eye-opening for us as well.
That's a great testimony, because you guys with Where in the Park already paid such intricate attention to the very tiny details of the park. And now you're looking at it in a different light as well. So I'm glad that you guys are able to benefit from this as well, because I wasn't sure. You guys are already pretty on par for where you need to be.
We're looking pretty closely at the details, but taking a step back to really appreciate the show going on with all of these little layers of the pyramid have been very helpful.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that that's the experience that you're having. Who's going to lead us with the first subtopic today, force perspective?
That's me. I got this one. All right. So, force perspective, it is defined as a technique in which Imagineers are playing with scale. And the whole purpose of it is to change your perspective, or the perceived perspective, of an object. But it doesn't have to be just an object, which I think a lot of times we think of, things like the buildings on Main Street, or buildings in general, where the first floor is built at, 90% to 100% scale. And then as you go up in story, the actual scale of it is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It's done many, many times throughout Disney parks. Cinderella Castle, Sleeping Beauty Castle, even icons around the world showcase. You have the pyramids in the Pyramid of Mexico, the Eiffel Tower in Paris. What I found interesting, and was mentioned in the book, was that the American Adventure building it looks like only 2 stories tall, but in actuality, it's about 5 stories, which is just crazy because you wouldn't notice that from just standing outside the building. So I love that as an example. It also works in reverse as well. So things that are appearing smaller instead of it being larger, like buildings. Also, some other examples, not just with buildings. You have Snow White's grotto at Disneyland, where all of the characters are actually the same size. Snow White and the 7 dwarves are all the same size, but because of forced perspective, Snow White is placed higher up the hill and further back, so it looks like she is smaller or further away, when in actuality everybody is the same size. There's also some examples in terms of plants, in which larger plants are placed up close to guests, and plants further away are smaller plants, but they might also be densely populated to give the illusion of things being further away than they actually are. The last element of forced perspective are colors. And so things that are further away typically are less saturated in color and less contrast between highlights and shadows. So a great example of this is Expedition Everest, in which it seems really far away because of the color choices that the Imagineers decided to use. And in actuality, it's right there. Like, you can, it's just a stone's throw away, but just because of the colors, it seems like it's really, really far. So a quick shout out, happy anniversary to Animal Kingdom.
Yes, happy anniversary, Animal Kingdom. So I would have to do research, but you just said something that sparked a memory for me. And I might have been John Hedge, who had like a color palette that was very specific to what kind of forced perspective they were looking for. I can't remember who it was. But it was about the different shades of blue that you use to make the sky feel like it's, you know, more grandiose, or make it look like it's closer. Or I know that they used it in Pirates when they wanted to make like the stone walls look further away or look closer. So there were different color pattern or color schematics kind of that they had that is it the Imagineering blue? Is that what they call it? There's a whole thing about it. I will look for it, and I will try and bring it back for our next episode, when we will be kind of taking these concepts and using them to armchair Imagineer, or have our own blue sky session over a topic that we choose at the end of this episode. So it usually comes up over the course of our conversation. So you'll get an Imagineer focus next week, and you will get an armchair Imagineer. Not next week, but the following 2 weeks. See? Chaos. Brain's planning. Okay. Before wait, let's talk about that. Kevin, anything you want to say about forced perspective?
The only thing I was thinking about for forced perspective, I can't even say it, that I really like at Disney is their use of forced perspective on their Christmas trees. Where they have the same ornaments going from the bottom to the top of the trees, but they actually choose bigger ones for the bottom and smaller ones for the top. So you think it's the same, but it's actually changing in size the whole way up if you look really closely.
And it makes the whole tree seem so much bigger.
Exactly.
Great example.
I just want to say that because I love that little like touch they put onto their trees. And other than that, I mean, like I feel like the buildings I'm kind of used to. A lot of that I've taken for granted. But that one, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, there it is. Like I fall for a little while, but it's
Kevin, you just gave our listeners something that they could do for forced perspective in their homes. You want to make your Christmas tree look bigger, make your 8-foot tree look like a 10-foot tree or a 12-foot tree. Use smaller ornaments on the top.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think forced perspective is definitely something that we see a lot of in the parks, and it's probably one of the most important things that Imagineers use in their Imagineering toolbox. And I will be completely honest and say my brain does not work that way. Like you were talking about the plants and how they choose smaller plants to put up front and like the larger plants in the back, but then they group. My brain, as the way it is, would never think to do that, to kind of like create that experience. Never. So kudos to Imagineers, because as you were saying that, my head went, what? It makes sense. I understand it, but would I be able to apply that? Absolutely not.
And it would be really jarring if they put really, really big trees in the back where all of the other details are really small. Like it wouldn't work. So to have everything be cohesive to tell the story, like all of those things need to be in sync. So I think they do. And that's why Disney is the gold standard with that, right?
It's an attention to detail that it takes a special person to sit there and think through that before it's actually planned. I am not that special person. Just gonna put that out there. I do not have that attention to detail. I have ADHD instead.
And that's why we're armchair Imagineers instead.
Yes.
We don't actually work for Disney.
Yes. So I actually loved a lot of the things that you said, Amanda, because they led right into my topic. But before we lead into my topic, which is readability, we are going to hear from We're in the Park. Hey, we know them. Let's hear from one of our sponsors.
We're in the Park Seek and Find Image Scavenger Hunt games will have you exploring theme parks like never before. But this is not like your childhood scavenger hunts. There are no word-based lists of items to find or a binder of riddles, trivia, math, or counting. Our games contain cards with images of details that can be found throughout the park just by walking around. You can play on your own schedule, so you don't have to worry about long lines, height requirements, or health concerns. Need help finding an image? We've got you covered, with hints and answers on each card so you're never left wondering where in the park the image can be found. Use the Scan Before Playing card to reveal an alternate image if one of the cards in your pack is currently hidden or removed from the park. Order today to get game packs for your next visits to the Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World theme parks. But the fun doesn't stop there. We also have games for Universal Studios in Hollywood and Florida, Knott's Berry Farm, Six Flags, SeaWorld, and more. Ready to experience your favorite theme parks in a whole new way? Go to www.whereinthepark.com/WaltzAPT podcasts to get 10% off your order. A portion of the sale will also go to support the Walt's Apartment podcast. Want $10 off your order instead? Visit patreon.com/WaltzAPT podcast to become a lamplighter. With so much more to discover, the only question is, do you know where in the park?
We do know we're in the park. Actually, they're sitting right here with us right now, Kevin and Amanda. So we love their park packs. If you have not checked any out, go ahead and go to their website, grab some. Come join us on Patreon. Become one of our patrons. You get a discount code. So go check out We're in the Park. Amanda, you talked about the cohesiveness of telling the story and how they need forced perspective to do that. And I actually brought up an example that I was going to bring up during my topic of readability about the stone during pirate scenes and how it allows you to look ahead into the story, pulls you in, because they're forcing you to look at that scene rather than everything else that's going around. They need to be able to tell the story quickly. And that is what readability is. Readability is one of the most important things in the Imagineering toolbox, just like I said about forced perspective. And in ride systems, mostly, particularly dark rides, guests pass through scenes quickly, and there's only about 3 to 5 seconds that Imagineers get to convey what's happening. You have to understand the story that quickly. They have to be able to provide the basis of the story in 3 to 5 seconds per scene. The audience must be able to immediately understand those things. That means that they have to create images that can be read by the audience almost immediately. If we look at pirates, you can think of like the auction scene, which is no longer an auction scene. The jail scene, the Dunk-A-Mare scene. You can quickly get what is happening in those scenes by a quick glance because they are able to focus your attention on the most important details of those scenes. And that's what makes the scene readable or the attraction readable, is how quickly you can tell a story by looking at it. And actually, the concept of readability came from the animation studios. Mark Davis was a master of it. Hence why he became an Imagineer. Thinking about the very, very small details that you think are going to go unnoticed, but subconsciously they become the biggest part of the perception. And even if they're not accurate, like to the time period or something like that, it's okay because it's part of telling the story. If it can tell the story better to have something that's not completely accurate, Imagineers are going to do that. Readability also leads to rewritability because there's lots of details that you're going to miss the first time. You've already got the story down. You know what's going on. Now you get to ride through multiple times and see what you've missed before. They do this a lot with painted scenery that allows you to be pulled in from a distance. Like I said, with stone walls, that kind of thing, the jail cell. Those things are pulling you in. So even when you're away from the scene, you're moving towards the scene, you're already starting to understand what is happening in the scene. because again, you have 3 to 5 seconds to understand that scene before it's over. They also do make sure that they focus on readability when they do posters, weenies, long shots. They all have to have readability so that as soon as a guest sees it, they understand what's happening. You don't have time to sit in the park and read a poster. You need to quickly glance up, know what it is. You don't have time to sit and figure out what is that structure right there? Is that Big Thunder Mountain? Is that the castle? You have to quickly look up and know what it is, because those things all have readability. Those are long shot examples of readability, or weenies. You can quickly look at them and know exactly what you're looking at and understand the story without having to read it in depth, read it thoroughly. So that's that 3 to 5 second window where I understand what's happening. It's carrying me on to the next part of the story. And again, I said, once you have the story, you can rewrite and then look for the details, and then that's a different level of magic. But at first, the first time writing it, maybe even the second, you're looking for that readability. How quickly can you get somebody who is going through an attraction or walking through a section of a theme park to understand exactly what's happening without having to spell it out for them? So that's what I got for readability. I love that it came from animation, because it makes sense in movie scenes, animated movie scenes, right? They're quickly having to tell us what's happening without saying, oh, look, there are birds flying. Oh, look, there's a cat meowing. Like, quickly, all of that has to happen all at once in a quick scene. Another example that I did have, though, sorry, see, my brain is on a tangent, was the faces of the countries in Epcot. They're all very, very different. You quickly glance up and you know, oh, this is the facade for this. This is the facade for that. And if you didn't, it would take you a lot longer to navigate the park. So those facades of the countries have their own readability. You're able to quickly look up and understand what they are, where you are, and how to navigate your way around the park. So readability is very, very important. You guys have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I love all of those examples, and you brought up a really, really good point about readability, right? Rewritability. Sorry, rewritability. See, my brain is crazy. So, where I had struggled when I first read through this part, I was like, okay, well, there's some parts of Disney that I feel are too fast. Like, yes, you have, the 3 to 5 seconds, but sometimes it's even shorter than that. So the whole part about rewritability is incredibly important. So an example of this for me is the flooded town at Big Thunder at the Magic Kingdom. And for that, it's incredibly short where you're in that section. And the first time through, I was like, whoa, okay, this is different from the one at Disneyland. Something is happening here. I'm not quite sure what that was. But I get in a second, I'm in a town of some sort. And the way that the train is moving, something chaotic is happening. And there's splashes all around. That being able to ride that ride again and have a better understanding of the story the second time around, okay, this is a flooded town. Okay, now I can understand what's going on here. And then from there, go back through and look at the details. Even though it is just like a 1 to 2 second little snippet of the ride. So
kind of on top of that, I think of the Haunted Mansion when you have the scene in between the attic and the graveyard, where I went on that ride many times, and I never read the point that you were actually falling out of the window of the attic and falling into the graveyard, like as you are dying. Apparently, I've heard that was the story, but I never actually understood it as it was happening. But I guess that goes to the readability, to my denseness to not pick that up. But I feel like there's that many others who also don't quite grasp that that's what's happening during that scene. But that's back to the readability of like your ability to read what's happening, but also to have it where someone explains it to you, you might eventually get to understand it as you rewrite.
Absolutely. And with that one, I can't unsee it now.
Yeah.
So every
exactly.
time we're in the attic and you have Constance there, and the hat box goes, and then you're falling backward, I know exactly what's happening in, if that's the story you want to tell of you are falling into the graveyard to your death. And that's why does that guy have a name with the dog? At
It's
the
the
end of
groundskeeper. I don't think he has
the
a name.
groundskeeper.
Groundskeeper.
That's why he's also so startled. Not because there's ghosts popping up everywhere, but because you just fell from a window. And now he is, witnessing your death. And that's very traumatic for both him and the dog.
But Jack seems okay with it during Christmas time.
Well, of course he seems fine with it. He's Jack.
He's from Halloween Town. That makes sense.
He's already dead too. He's a skeleton.
Yeah. So
he's welcoming
okay.
you into the graveyard of fun.
Plus, I mean, like, look at Zero.
Yeah, he's definitely not alive.
No.
Ghost dog reindeer.
So I did have a question though with something that you just said. Kevin, you were the one I said it, I think. You said, well, someone could explain it to you and then you get it the next time. So then would we say that the attraction had good readability if someone has to explain it to us?
I don't know if that's my dentist. I don't know if you picked that up when you went on the ride. If you never heard someone else explain that to you. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's my personal lack of understanding but it's a good question.
To that point, with the flooded town in the Magic Kingdom, it took me 3 to 4 times in writing it and then really like doing a YouTube video of the details because you're going past it too fast. So, the argument can be made that it's too fast.
Here.
Yeah. And to see all the details and Easter eggs and all of that are within the town, it's awesome to go back and look through that, but you wouldn't know that had it not been from this YouTube video slowing it down, So I think to your point of, does it have to be explained in order to be, good readability? I think so, but at the same time, I think if the flooded town or if the falling scene were to be in your face explained, it would take out of the ride itself.
Yes, but is there more of a balance that can be found? Because if you're not getting it the first time, you're not understanding the story the first time you go through the attraction, then it's kind of lost on you. You might just be like, oh, okay. Then you don't want to rewrite it. I don't know.
Because that's where readability matches thrill. So you have the choice of which one you're enjoying the attraction for.
Yep.
I know there's a section in Kevin Rafferty's book, which I love referencing, I guess, where he talks about having to work with sponsors.
He has the same name as you.
Kevin is a great name. But no, he's talking about sponsors and trying to work with them on making attractions for theme parks where they have so much like of a message that they're trying to get across for their products, where he's finding about the readability of the short time you have on an attraction to get the story of the attraction in there. Can't think of any like great details right now off the top of my head, but you can go read the book and he'll explain to you how Imagineering does rely on that readability factor, which other people, like even in the motion picture industry, are like, we have so much time to tell the story. He's all, here you have about 3 seconds. The vehicle is moving right past that scene. So just very interesting.
It is. It's a tough nail to hit on the head. I don't know that I could do it. Again, another thing that I'm like, nope, my brain can't do that. But I do feel like for the most part, things are very readable in Disney as far as readability goes. The attention to detail. I love that this section talked about how even things that you think will go unnoticed are subconsciously becoming your perception. And you may not even realize that, like, hey, those extra chains on the wall or the way that the stones are painted, things like that. You don't even realize that those details are literally what's telling you the story. Those are the things that are informing you of exactly what's happening in that scene. They're such minute things. And without them, you're going to be missing things. You're going to be missing the main parts of the story. So,
Absolutely.
Because they're drawing your attention to it. They're trying to give you a focus to understand. So, all right.
Definitely.
We've got one section left with Kinetics. But before we do that, we do have another sponsor to hear from. So let's hear from Getaway Today.
Well, hello, and welcome to Let's Get to Know Our Sponsor. Getaway Today has been helping Disney vacation dreams come true since 1990. Whether you choose to visit the happiest place on earth or travel to Orlando and beyond, they want to help you. Need to know the best hotel in the area? What theme park ticket should you buy? Have a last-minute change? No worries. Their travel experts are always here to help. Want to book a cruise and don't know where to start? Hey, they can help with that too. They will help you find the perfect cruise for your vacation, whether it is your first time or you're a well-seasoned cruiser. When you book your cruise with one of the Getaway Today's experts, you will have a dedicated agent to help you every step of the way. They take care of the details so you can have the most fun. Getaway Today has layaway, peace of mind travel, allowing you to cancel or make changes up to 72 hours in advance. You will always have the most up-to-date vacation information, both pre-arrival and upon your welcome. Getaway Today will guarantee the best prices with no hidden fees. And every time you book through Getaway Today, they will donate a portion back to a charitable organization in your area. And so far, over $4.5 million has been donated. So click the link in our show notes to start your Disney vacation planning for more information and the best deals. Tell them Walt's Apartment sent you. And until next time, enjoy the view from Walt's apartment.
That was our break to get to know Getaway Today, one of our sponsors. Go ahead and check them out for all of your vacation planning needs. Also, check out our sponsor, Sunken City Designs. Louis, we love him. Can't wait for him to be back. We've got one more section to go on this tier of the pyramid. And Kevin, that's you. What do you got for Kinetics? Because Kinetics is a big one.
Yeah. Kinetics, for the theme parks, it comes from the Greek. It means puts into motion. And it's just anything that moves in the parks, essentially. And obviously, we can think of 1,000 things when you're at a theme park that you see moving. According to the book by Prosperi, you have vehicles, active signage, changes in lighting, special effects, and even hanging banners and flags when it's windy. He has a quote from Rolly Crump about how your eye watches what moves. And that's kind of it's very true. When you're walking into a park, you're not looking at the stuff that's static. You're looking at what's keeping you moving forward. And so he talks a lot about rides, a lot about the visual weenies that we've already covered in this podcast. You have the sliding doors on the Tower of Terror, and how you can see the elevator moving around at Hollywood Studios and the Guardians of the Galaxy now over at DCA. You have the roller coaster train climbing the Forbidden Mountain of Expedition Everest over at Animal Kingdom. He also talks about layers of kinetics, where when you walk from Fantasyland to Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom, you can actually see the Astro Orbiter spinning, and you can see the People Mover just driving around while the Carousel Progress is also moving. So you have constant motion in your eyes. I feel like at Walt Disney World, they also use a lot of water in the other parks other than the Magic Kingdom, as they're one of their primary sources of kinetics. So whenever you're at a park and you see water moving around, it's because they want to keep your eye visually entertained, I guess, as you're going through the park. Actually, going back to readability, one of the sources of kinetics that Prosperity talks about are the jumping fountains and the reverse waterfall at the Journey into Imagination at the Imagination Pavilion in Epcot. And the reverse waterfall, I feel, is something that I never read as a reverse waterfall until someone told me that's what it was. Where I always saw it just as fountains shooting upward. Like I'm like, no, you need at least 30 more fountains to make that into a reverse waterfall to be readable. But that's just my perspective on that. My little aside.
I don't disagree there.
So I think that's everything that he really covered in the book. He goes into a little aside in the Kinetics section about Alex Wright talking about background music and how it adds on to Kinetics, where the music when you're walking through different lands, how it changes, especially when you go from Magic Kingdom to Adventureland. It's the example he brings where you have the different time period going into the wilds of Adventureland. You can hear it as you're going through. I would argue it isn't kinetic by definition because it's not actually moving.
I mean, when you're being kinetic, it helps to tell the story. It gives readability to the land.
100%.
But you are the kinetic thing.
Yeah. I would argue the music isn't kinetic. Over in Pandora,
I would say it's a forced perspective, though.
Yeah. You have that transition too as well. You have that also one of the building blocks of the pyramid. But yeah, over in Batu and Galaxy's Edge, you have the sound of vehicles and the sound of animals in like the planters and stuff. That is kind of it's not kinetic because it's not actual motion, but it gives the illusion of kinetics because you can picture in your head something is moving.
Yeah, and it creeps me out.
Yeah, it's fun every time. For me, I think my favorite kinetics are like the Main Street vehicles when you get into either of the castle parks. I like the different vehicles where we have the trolley with the horse and the omnibus going through. Also, something that he didn't include, which I really think should be included, are the characters walking around. I think that especially at Avengers Campus over at DCA, that is the primary kinetic in that land, are the actors portraying the Marvel characters that are doing all the different routines that they're going to do. I think leaving that out is
quite literally moving through the lands.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the biggest eye catchers for me when you're walking through those parks.
Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
The other one I was going to bring up was when I was at the park yesterday, I was walking through very quickly to just check on some images for Nurses Day at the parks coming up this week. If you're attending, say hi to us. But walking toward the Matterhorn, you have it where right in front of you, you see this waterfall just coming right down from this mountain. And then the bobsled just goes right in front of it. And it's just so neat to see where it's like right there, you got kinetics because everything else there is kind of dead because you have the side of the castle in like a restroom. And to the right, you have Pixie Hollow doing no motion at all, unless it's really windy. And then right in front of you, though, is just like this life that beacons you to move forward into the park.
Yeah, these things are all so important. And like I said, as someone who cannot plan this elaborate of things, it's crazy that we have people who, with this level of creativity and this level of attention to detail, Amanda, that can think these things through to provide these experiences and who can like pre-plan these things. It's not like, for a lot of the things, it's not, oh, hey, we didn't have anything kinetic here. Or this is created for the land. This land is created. Now we've got to walk through. Now we're going to go back in and add something with kinetics here. Sometimes they do, like the character walkthroughs and things like that. But a lot of the kinetics are already pre-planned. It's crazy to me that like how brilliant our Imagineers are. I was going to ask about audio animatronics. So do they count as kinetic? I mean, they're moving, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Prosperity focused mostly on the kinetics in the lands, not on the attractions. But yeah, I would definitely consider audio animatronics a huge step forward in kinetics that weren't there when the park first opened. I mean, you had the Jungle Cruise, I think was the only ride that had actual
Yeah.
moving creatures. But
And
yeah,
I mean, even thinking about lights that are flashing, like Space Mountain, like when you've got lights moving around, right? That is literally the only kinetic. You have to have that for the ride. Like that's the ride. The music and the way the music moves with you, and the way the lights are moving. That's all you have for that entire attraction. The entire attraction is kinetics.
Yeah, I was noticing how the static signs at night become much more kinetic, where especially like Cars Land and yeah, where during the daytime it's like kind of static over there, but at nighttime everything starts shining and moving around with the blinking lights, and
yeah,
it adds a layer to it.
It's interesting that we do have a different experience in the park too, because then we have, and honestly, that's the experience. Like think about a carnival even. Is it more fun to be at a carnival during the day or a carnival at night? Well, at night you have all the lights, you have things moving, like you have different layers that you don't have during the daytime. So I feel like it could be the same way at the parks too. It's a different experience.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I didn't pick up on until we were just talking about it was how the different sounds can really make the land also and help tell the story of the land. Like for me, I never really understood the need for boardwalk games at theme parks. In some parks it's very distracting. But I get it for the kinetic aspect of it. As far as music and sounds go, there's always bells and whistles and clinging noises and all kinds of stuff. So I think about like the boardwalk games along Pixar Pier, and there's some in every theme park. But applying it to the kinetic aspect of it, it helps tell the story of, hey, you're along a boardwalk, or like the shooting gallery in Frontierland. Obviously, there's no bullets or anything in the guns that you're shooting, but it adds to the element, and they're loud for a reason. It helps to build up that anticipation and put you in that element of being in the Wild West, right? So it helps to paint that picture in your brain, and like we were talking about, like your imagination takes over of things that you might not be able to see move, but your imagination is making it more alive than it actually is. So yeah, just wanted to add that a little bit.
I believe the shooting gallery does have moving things, right? I mean, we never really.
It does have moving things, but I'm talking about like just the sound of it.
Yeah.
But again, that's another thing that like we don't necessarily think about is, oh, there's nothing moving in this part of the park. There's nothing moving in this part of the park. Or like there is something moving in this part of the park. Or now looking at it from a different perspective and saying, I prefer this space over this space because of the kinetics. I can see how those things draw you in. I can see how those things enhance the experience as a guest. It's crazy to kind of just like think about those things. And I think that's a fun reason about why we're doing this, is to kind of challenge our brains to think more like Imagineers, even though I don't know mine is ever going to get there, but we're going to try. We're going to be positive. We're going to be positive.
It's a skill.
Skills can be crafted and developed. We'll work.
That's right.
We will work on it. But is there anything else you guys want to say about this layer of the pyramid before we close out and have our little discussion about who and what we're doing next week?
Well, going back, Kevin had mentioned it when he was talking about kinetics, but we were at Disneyland last night, and we were really kind of breaking down the park in terms of these things, the kinetics, the readability, and force perspective. And at first, walking through California Adventure, we were like, what are the kinetics here? You know, like we have like the three things, you know, the trolley, you know, we have some things that are clearly moving, but we were kind of struggling at first to to break it down. And then as we were walking around, a lot of that park is water. So you have the fountain at, part of the main hub at DCA. You have, Grizzly Peak that has the waterfall happening on all sides. You have water everywhere. I think that there are some areas where there could be more kinetics, but maybe that's what we touch on next week for our armchair Imagineering. But yeah, I think just having these things, like I was talking about in the beginning, it really, when you stop and take a look at a park and break it down with all of the things that we're talking about in this pyramid, you really get a deeper appreciation for the parks. And it's so crazy because I already thought I had a deeper appreciation for the parks, but now it's like, okay, wow. The use of forced perspective in places that I didn't think had forced perspective. Some places where I think, hey, maybe we need to trim down the trees a little bit. So we have more forced perspective going on because the trees grow. So things like that, it really puts things into perspective.
And you saying that actually just reminded me of who I think I would like to cover for our Imagineer next week. And I'm thinking John Hench, because he's a master of forced perspective. Think about the multiplane camera. Think about, he's the one who brought up the color stuff that I had talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. So
we'll find out if that is true, right?
I did just Google it really quick.
Okay, good.
He actually, there are 2 colors that he used for forced perspective. Yes, 2 of them, Amanda, that are Disney invented colors, essentially. So. And
we'll cover those next week. It's like a cliffhanger.
We will. Sure. We will cover them next week. And it sounds like we're going to be talking about some armchair Imagineering for Kinetics. That sounds like a fun time to me. So not next week, but the following week, we will be back for some more Imagine That.
Come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.